acting is about fail, 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 success. Fail, 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 success. Even in class, you got to fail a lot to be brilliant. You're not going to be brilliant and that brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. That's not how life is.
Mm-hmm.
Failure is something you go, okay, it's okay to do bad work. It's okay to do good work. Both are valuable. Both will give me a lesson. Because the longevity of your acting is really about the lessons along the way that you learn as you enrich your life because you get to live as an artist.
The best tool that you have as an actor is the life that you've lived up until this moment. I learned to know people, and I treat them as individuals. Every actor is different. Every human being is different. We all feel things differently. That's why no one technique is right for everyone, any one actor. Every actor has to put together a toolkit, you know? So I respond to this. I don't respond to that. I love doing this kind of improv. When I need to cry, I do this. We learn all different things. And so that's why I teach a combination of things. I try to come from kindness first, because I truly believe that you need to know where your strengths are first, and then the other, it's more comfortable to grow. Once you feel comfortable and you develop some confidence as an actor, then you start getting in there and digging on the other stuff. I don't really like to tear people apart.
When you're an actor and you're doing the scene, you're going to get so many notes from me, and I'm nothing critical. It's never personal, but it's just what's not in, what's not, what tool you're using. We're going to talk about what tools you're working, what's not working, what is working, how to make it work better. I'm going to give you a bunch of steps of what to do, how to practice it, what to do on your own, how to connect. A lot of actors don't believe that they actually have the capacity to focus and do it, but you do.
Sometimes I'll have clients come to me with the same audition, and they're going to walk out the door with an entirely different audition because they're different people that bring me different things. So no one's ever going to get the same coaching, even if it is for the same audition.
You're not a cookie cutter. I love it. I love it because I think acting is very specific. When you pick up a piece of material, it's really marrying it to you. One of the challenges a lot of actors face, because they're not trained, they just come in the game thinking they can do it. It's like, oh yeah, I can act, especially nowadays where you have YouTube, you got all these platforms where people get in front of the camera. So they think it's easy. They don't know the craft behind it.
The determination and persevering teachability and humility and the practice until what is foreign becomes integrated and effortless and seamless. This is the mark of professionals. When you look at Meryl Streep and you're like looking at this thing, Big Little Lies, and she's got like her cheeks pucked out. She looks like a chipmunk and she's like a prune. And she's like this very nasty, controlling mother who thinks she's so right. And she's telling Nicole Kidman's character off, and she's interrogating Shailene Woodley's character. And then you turn around and you see her looking sort of beautiful and expansive and sort of bountiful and lush and plump and full. The Devil Wears Prada, she's icy cold, but she's like a legacy beauty. And then she turns into the nun in Doubt. I think the level of specificity and articulation with the voice, the body, the behavior, the emotional access, the costume, the movement, all of these many complex elements being, like Martha Graham says, that simplicity which costs everything. And she was the dance teacher for Sandy Meisner back in the day at the Neighborhood Playhouse. So you're talking about bringing things down to an effortlessness. And when you see young pre-professionals, there's a lot of muscular tension, a lot of physical tension, a lot of trying to do it, a lot of pushing. And when people really are streaming it through them like a channel and floating it out, and yet they're totally different, and yet you're like mesmerized by how they're able to capture elements that are so unique to each true character and the writer's intent. This is the great acting.
We want to create an impact. So here's the thing I always say to actors, this is a really important point, and I don't make it enough, which is when actors say, well, I'm not going to do my work, or I'm not going to coach, or I'm not going to like do my proper work on it. They know how to do script analysis. Is that because they didn't write, they're not writing for me. And so, you know why they're not writing for you? Because you're not bringing it. Because I've had people take a tiny role and turn it into one of the regulars, one of the stars of the show, where people were just like they were recurring, or they were just a guest star, and not a small guest star, and they turned it into one of the stars of the show because we've made everything, nothing's a throwaway. And if they're not writing for you, it's because you didn't supply them the inner work, because they read your mind. All that work that we did was so much inner monologue. It was inner monologue. It wasn't obviously on the page. And so going back to, you have the power, actors, to make your part be huge, make it be celebrated, to make people be talk about it. Or you could also take a part that's great and then have it taken away from you, or have you get yourself killed off, or they diminish the role to something that's a non-event because you didn't do the work. You've got to do the work, and you've got to take risks with the choices that you make. Don't say play safe. Play safe is for losers. Whenever you say to yourself, I'm afraid, you're making the wrong choices. I'm afraid to be too big. I'm afraid that this isn't going to work. I'm afraid this choice is too dangerous. I'm afraid this choice, the director won't like it. I'm afraid. Anything that starts off with the I'm afraid creates a version of censorship. And the whole concept of art is freedom, right? So if we're censoring anything, that's antithetical to the freedom process of art. Fear has to be a part of the yin yang. Fear has to be a part of fearlessness. If you don't have fear, you won't understand fearless. But you have to try to overcome fear, not be accepting of it. That's the big difference.
I asked them to make a list of events that bring up feelings, objects that bring up feelings, songs that bring up feelings, anything that we can try to incorporate that will help them to bring those feelings together. And when they think of a certain person, or if they think of a certain song, and then if they need to emote, try to bring up tears. I mean, I can think of a couple of things and right away the tears might come up. But so the thing is that these things help. These are all tools that will help them to do that. That it's a little at a time, but they have to go home and think about it and work it and think and write it down. And sometimes they just don't do the work, unfortunately.
It's great from the beginning to have a diary where you're putting all this information in your acting diary, so that it will follow, it will go with you wherever you go.
Yes.
So as you're moving in classes, you have it and you just keep adding.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, when they register, I give them their book with their name on it, and my class and my number and everything. And, in case you have questions, but absolutely. Before they even come in, they're supposed to get a dictionary and a thesaurus, because this is where we start to break down the scene, and we know we need to have that available. I said, well, I've got it on my phone, but it's not the same, because when you open that book, that thesaurus, that's different. You have one whole page full of actions, verbs, adverbs, all kinds of things that we need. But we need verbs. That's what we're looking for. But anyway, so that when they start, yeah, absolutely, they keep adding to that book. And I say, you make sure you bring your book every single week, because we might go back and do something else too.
One thing that I really notice that a lot of young actors do, a mistake they do, is they will get a script and they'll go, where are my lines? No. Read everything. A script is a roadmap that leads you to where you're supposed to go with that scene.
the biggest mistake is they just pick up the sides and act, and they don't know what they're acting. And I've directed 5 projects that I've directed. And of course, a lot of them that have been pre-production that haven't gone yet. And I've done a lot of auditions. I've seen so many auditions of, original material that I've written. And how many actors do not actually read or know what's even on the page? I did a stage reading of a Civil War film that I wrote, and who knows if it'll ever get made because it's a female lead. And it was back in the early 2000s. And I remember we were auditioning everyone. I teach at the Whitefire Theater, and we were just going through, and a lot of the young men didn't even know what the Civil War was. I mean, it was interesting. So, I mean, having a grasp of history, a lot of your auditions, just Google up the history. You're going to expand, grow, and it's going to enrich your life to know a little bit about the past.
Look up everything. We have a great thing at hand now called the internet. I don't know if you've heard of it. Where if you don't know how to pronounce a word, someone's going to pronounce it for you.
Yes.
It's great. There is really no reason to not know anything in a script because you can look everything up, especially if you're auditioning for, a medical show or a legal show or, where there is so much terminology. It's really bad to go in an audition for Grey's Anatomy playing a doctor and get the medical terminology wrong.
That's one thing I never, ever, ever let a student slack off on. I will call them on it. Did you look up that word? What is this? Can you explain this? I always get, no. Then why are you saying words you don't know? So research to me is everything. And you can't be an actor if you're gonna be lazy in that department. The research is just part of the job, right? So I'm gonna research it. Now, here's the key. As an actor, you can't just research it from afar. You've got to find a way to go, that's me. I'm researching me. I'm getting to know me more, because how can you play the role if it's at a distance, right? You've got to figure out how to bridge that gap. So yeah, I'll do a lot of research. I start asking questions, especially if there's something I don't understand. And then I start playing, and then I film myself, and then I ask myself, do I believe myself? I really do try to step out of my body and go, do I believe what that person is trying to be? And if I don't, I keep at it.
There is something real about people not all knowing their history of the art form and not all having really studied the great works. It's not true of everyone, but it's true of many people. The quick solution to coaching for an audition versus learning how to actually act so you have confidence when you get there and can have a really meaningful career. There's an immediacy due to social media that translates a little to a lack of concentration and a desire for fame, which explains that, someone who might be an influencer might be given the opportunity to do a role that they don't have the skill for. And maybe people won't have the skill to see they don't have the skill, because it takes a certain degree of education to know what you're looking at. If I went to an art museum, I'm not going to tell you that I know what my best friend who's a painter knows.
Theater is for the actor. Film is the director's medium. And if an actor really wants to harness their skill, they need a blank page with just dialogue. And that's theater. And they need to work on subtext and depth. When you bring a persona to film, you've developed yourself as an artist. And an actor, even a coach, a director, a writer, it's a lifelong journey. It's not a short sprint. It's a marathon. To develop that skill, you want to bounce back and forth between where are all the taboos and all the experimentation is in theater. It's not in film. Film is a sure thing, what they know the audience wants, and they're going to sell it. But a lot of experimentation is done in theater. And I have to tell you, most every master class actor, and I have a lot of master students. In fact, I cater to master and advanced level a lot. I do have beginning, but mostly master. And what I discover is all of them have a vocabulary of the master writers. They have an understanding of, David Mamet or John Patrick Shanley, like I was saying, or, Tennessee Williams. And in breaking in my book, the new book coming out, I do have classic works, but I also have an independent short that won a bunch of awards that I broke down with one of my students, and that session's in there too. So I have some sessions, I have like 5 sessions in there. And so my feeling is if you're beginning as an actor, it can't be about you. It can't be an ego thing. It has to be about committing to understanding the text. And once you do that, when you start getting feature film auditions, your depth is like, I mean, it is unbelievably more captivating because you understand words. Every scene has a change in it. There's always a climax that all of a sudden information is given, something happens, and there's a change. If you're not having a change in your scene, if it's all the same all the way to the end, then you've missed a lot of the underpinnings of the scene.
I always start with an angry monologue because that makes the emotions come up. Anybody, to get mad is easier than to try to be dramatic and cry, and comedy, forget about it. It's much harder because there's timing involved. So I never start with comedy. I always start with anger so that I can start to rev up their feelings. But I really try to get them disciplined right away. This is very important to be disciplined because my technique requires them to do the next step and do the homework. And this is really so important, so very important. It's 100%. You have to put your whole body into this if you want this profession.
It's hard work, and I don't care if you're naturally talented. It's the hard work and the taking chances and taking risks and bold choices that make you be heralded and lauded and looked up to as someone that we want to watch more of. And also it excites us to see, what are you going to do in your next whatever? Because I know it's going to be interesting and fun to watch.
People aren't as concerned about having technique, and they need technique. They need to learn cold reading. They need to learn improv. They need to do scene study. They need to know what to put into a script, how to analyze it, how to do their own work and work with a partner. And they also just need to do it for a while.
You should be able to listen, answer, emotionalize, be specific about the relationship, construct shared circumstances, understand the writer's intent, the period, the place, the sexuality, the education, the class level, the location, the physical life, the vocal life, all aspects, and then plan like a dance choreographed, a performance choreographed, and then live it like an accident.
I have a saying, and that has never come unrehearsed, unprepared, or uninspired. So once you really look at the material and you're going into rehearsal, there's something that has to move you inside to connect to what you're about to do. And it doesn't have to be personal. It might be just something like you really love the relationship that's on the page, or you really connect to or relate to the character. And then, and that's what you need to do when you go into. You have to be open. You're going to be collaborating. You can't be stuck on how you're going to do it. I think another thing that actors fail to realize is that every time you prepare or make a different choice, it's going to come out different. That's great. Until somebody says, keep it, allow yourself to change. Otherwise, you're going to get bored. And I think that's the worst thing, is an actor gets bored with a scene because they never actually did enough deep work on it to allow the scene to take on a life of its own and evolve. So that's another aspect, is you really can't get bored if you really, really keep digging in.
Really, I wanted to tackle heightened emotion. So I think, generally speaking, everyone loves improv class. I feel like it takes a little more convincing to do a scene study class, especially when you're young. I think adults see the value in it. But drama is also one of those things that most people shy away from. But there's a little bit of drama that can be done superficially. Not that I'm okay with that, but people could get away with it. But then you get to an emotional scene, and that's when the truth comes out of whether or not you got the chops to carry this art form, right? I mean, you always have to show a sense of vulnerability, but when you have to show emotion, that crack, if that crack is not there, we can tell you're phoning it in, and that you haven't had the proper training and practice to know what it's like to open up in that way. And so, yes, I've taught several emotional classes, and it's very sad. It's the idea of just getting people in touch with their vulnerability, especially around others, because when we work on set, we are surrounded by others. So one of the things I teach is to build the concept of a private bubble so that you feel safe to release these emotions like no one is watching you, even though the reality is lots of people are watching you.
They have to decide what the super objective is. What do you want from the whole scene? What are you trying to do? You have to answer that question. My intention is this, and then my response to that is this, and that's what my intention is, to do that. And so they make that those choices as you go along.
I don't believe that you should share with your fellow actor your objective. That's your business. That's their business. No one should be directing each other ever. If somebody's telling you how to act something, go, thank you very much, and don't do anything of what they said, because that's not a collaboration. A collaboration happens in the doing of the work. You can hang out and talk about, your cat or your dog, go take a walk, talk about what you did that weekend. But when you go to do the work, it's your private information that you're holding, and they're holding theirs. And you come together in character as in that scene, in that relationship, and what the scenario is about.
If you don't have connection with your scene partner, you don't have anything, So I like them to connect. I like them to discuss the relationship. Relationship is key. I like them to feel like they've come to a point together with the scene.
I want to tell a story, which is the basis of what acting or writing and directing is. You're telling a story with the writer and the director. You tell the same story. It creates a beginning, middle, and end. Well, there's no beginning, middle, and end to emotions. They're just chaos. It's chaos of thought, chaos of feelings. There's no logic to it. There's no linear line to it. So what you use the emotions as fuel to give more history, more urgency, and more desperation to your objective, then it's using it for a purpose. So whether you could cry or not cry is really inconsequential, because you want the other person to want to cry. If I want to make you feel like you did something wrong and you really screwed me up, I'm going to try to make you cry. You're guilty. I don't want you to feel guilty. So I might find myself crying naturally because it's the only way to make you feel guilty. But it's in a purpose.
A lot of actors, they just think only of the internal experience, which, by the way, I'm big on in my first book. But when you get to auditioning, I'm big on also how are you presenting, what choice externally are you making as well. So they work together. Of course, if you don't have an internal life, then you're not going to be convincing. But if you have both going, people are going to pay attention to you, and you will get interest. I believe that it is possible for anyone to become a professional working actor. I've done it so many times in my, years of teaching, and actors that come to me are up and comers, and they're going to do it too. And the only reason why you can't is if you quit. And that's it. They have to be brave, and they have to be so brave that they can work through their own limits emotionally, because what's on the page, you're going to have to bring something to it. And if you don't bring anything to it, it's not going to be interesting. So the weakest actor, the new actor, is usually, we're working through fearlessness. If you're not fearless, you will bring resistance to the work.
The most important thing is for them to allow themselves to go down into their emotions. That's always the line that stops the actor from experiencing the depth of their soul.
You're only limited by your ability or capacity to go there. And if you're unwilling to connect to deeper levels, then we have to work on that. Not that you're unwilling, you're probably willing, but you just need work, you need guidance.
Crying is for some reason easier for women than it is for men, and I just blame society. I just blame that society tells men that they can't and shouldn't cry. And then you want to be an actor and you come to me for coaching, and I have a lot of chipping to do away at what society has done to guys. So when I get a young man in my presence, if the parent is there, I'll tell them, don't suppress their emotions in home. The kid wants to cry, let them. Don't say boys don't cry. That's not okay. Because if he wants to be an actor, he has to be open to emotion. In my life, my personal life, I remember dating someone. When we went to the movies, I would cry like a baby, and he'd be like, oh, why are you always crying? And I remember thinking, thank God I cry. Like, thank God I'm open, because I would be a terrible actor if I was really sealed off and couldn't cry. And so I think as actors, we have to defend and protect ourselves. I love to watch the news, but sometimes the news makes me cry, and I need to know when when is enough, right? Like when I need to protect my energy so that it's there when I need it.
The reason why most people are in this business is because they've suffered some pretty strong pain in their lives. So we're all in this together. And I feel like if you can expose yourself through your work and the things that have in the past caused you shame, is bravery, and bravery is sexy. There's something just so powerful and sexy about somebody that's brave. And so bravery, I think, takes more bravery to expose what's really happening in your heart, and it makes you feel vulnerable, than it does to cross 10 buses on a motorcycle and to climb Mount Everest, because it's really, it's scary to expose that stuff.
Connect with your teacher. Don't just study with the flavor of the month. Seek out somebody who will really deliver something that will speak to you and help you bring your art out.
People say, how do I choose what acting school I'm shopping? And I always say, it's not that complicated. When you go somewhere from Yelp that has reviews, or when the highest level of talent has emanated from one school, there's ways to see statistical proof. So the proof is what you're looking for. Do people who teach not do other things? Do people who are looking for acting schools find them by meeting someone, watching an acting class? Watching an acting class is very deceptive, because you might like it one day, and if you went and the next day, hate it. So it's really like, where do the people that succeed, who are at the level that I was at, go? That's the way that I think you want to look at things. I don't want to be a shopper. I want to look at the statistical results of who had that heart operation, what doctor did it, and who lived. That's kind of the way I look at it.
There's actors out there who think, well, I'll just get famous on TikTok or Instagram, and then I'm going to be a movie star. Well, if you don't have the technique to back it up, it's going to tank. So you have to look at the big picture of your career. Again, I'm all for creating content as long as you're growing with it.
Absolutely.
Becoming a good actor.
Yes, and working on your craft, be it filmmaking, be it stand-up, whatever, writing, to really work on your craft, and knowing that this is a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly.
We are in it for the long haul. Even though we didn't know it back then, we were preparing for the long haul.
Right.
Because I think back then, I know for me, it wasn't so much about being a star. It was about, I was so happy to be an actor. And it was like you wanted to deliver the goods. For me, it was important to be able, if I was doing something on camera, to hit it in one take. That was always my thing of do all your work now. So when you get in front of that camera, you get it in the first take. And if they do other takes, it's just a bonus, but you're ready.
It is a craft. And I equate acting a lot to dance. Not that I'm an amazing dancer, but I've taken enough dance classes to know that you've got to do little exercises of specific things that are going to ultimately end up in the bigger picture of the bigger choreography you're going to do. Same thing with acting. You're going to be given 2 to 3 pages or more of content that's going to really require those little craft practices to have happened, because they can't miraculously occur when you're given a bulk of pages. Everyone wants to play the lead or a series regular, but have you put in the work to put in all those little moments?
You have the power of choice, you know, and so make choices that will help you be proactive in making whatever it is you want to have happen come true. And that's, I think the main thing is you have the power. It's just a choice to use it or not to use it. And so I think life is filled with choices, and you have that choice to be able to say, like, I can do this. Remember, it's like success is the path of most resistance. Not getting what you want, being defeated, is the path of least resistance. It's easy to go, I give up. So that's so you have to, the path of least resistance is like it's an easy sunny day and I'm going to be defeated, walking through my defeated self-destructive way, or I have, like, it's raining and it's hailing and there's snakes out there and there's brambles hitting you in the face as you walk down your journey, and it's like, then it's like, well, you know what, on the end of that journey is satisfaction. At the end of, I was able to get through this, and this to get there.
A good coach learns from their students, you know? I learn from my actors too. I mean, they've opened the door for me. Initial orientation to my work, it's very emotional. People really connect, and it's all imagination. And I'll never forget this one kid, the first class I taught, started weeping. And he goes, I get it. He had empathy for this one character because I opened the door for him. And that was it. And I called my agents and manager and I said, I'm ready to just be a teacher and coach.
I love when you see the light turn on in someone's eyes, you know, when there's that moment where they come in, maybe it's someone who's really new and they're really scared and they fall in love with acting. Or the moment when someone's been hitting their head, and all of a sudden it's the night when they have a huge breakthrough. We were doing this exercise this week where I played music as a soundtrack behind the scenes as a tool to open yourself up and unlock emotionally. There's always a lot of breakthroughs on those nights. And so I'm just coming off of that week. So, and then of course, you know, when they work, when I watch them on TV, and films, I have actors who won huge awards and I cry like a baby every time, like they're my children. They're all my children, always.
I love
Even the
it.
ones who are older than me.
I love it.